Welcome to the Bringing Hope Home podcast. We're Bryce and Colette Schaefer, pastors, teachers, and madly in love empty nesters. We invite you into our home as we candidly share faith-filled, practical ways to build a strong and lasting marriage.
All right, welcome to another episode of Bringing Hope Home. We are Bryce and Colette, and we're going to get into another episode about marriage here.
Yeah, we're glad you could join us once again.
That's right.
We're on a great journey.
That's right. And so today's episode comes actually from a question that we got on our first marriage episode, where we were talking about just some of the things that we had taken from our families. We were talking about how you had thought that things needed to be equal, and
Right.
it really, that made a lot of problems. And so the question that came was, do things not need to be equal? And so we thought, hey, let's just go ahead and make a whole podcast episode on this, because it can be a little tricky. It sounds good to be equal, but in actuality, equal doesn't mean equal.
Right.
I guess if you can say it that way.
Yeah, and it can't in a marriage. And the reason it can't be equal in a marriage is because of time constraints or job requirements or life, happenings. When we were going to seminary, I did a lot of the cooking at night and the bathing of our children. If I wanted to be equal in that, there was no way. I would have been very frustrated and gotten bitter.
Because I was working.
Because you were working and you couldn't be there in time. So I could have said, well, the kids will have to wait till tomorrow. It's not my turn.
But then if I was working late and then had to come home and
Right.
bathe the kids, that wouldn't have been equal either.
No.
Because you were at home.
That's right. And then I was just sitting there, or whatever the case may be. It really, a marriage isn't an equal proposition, but it's certainly something that is a two-way street. And it's about making a team and getting the job done.
Well, and it's what you define as equal. Right? So, the two things that I thought of that should be equal is equal effort,
right,
and equal love.
I agree.
Those two things, if you're giving an equal effort in your marriage and loving each other, now that love might look different, right? We've talked about the love languages. There's the 5 love languages. Well, you have, gifts, you have acts of service, you have touch. So, if you're meeting each other's needs or talking each other's love language, that might not look the same and it might not seem equal, but to each other it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And again, it's about that effort and the attitude of love that we're bringing into this marriage, which is really, really important. Because again, if I just go off the idea of, like I did with my brother and I, where odds and even days or whatever the case may be, to keep peace in the home between two brothers, that isn't going to play out so well in the marriage, because when you start trying to see about equal, and that's what I kind of did at the beginning of our marriage, I wanted things to be equal. If you made dinner, I'd do the dishes.
You were approaching it like a brother and sister relationship instead of a husband and wife.
I was. And in doing that, then my mindset would shift to keeping score.
Right.
And that was never a good thing because when I started keeping score and I felt like I was losing,
right. I'm
doing more than you, then the devil, that gives a foothold to the devil to say, you know what, now you need to be bitter, now you need to push back, now you need to try to even the score somehow.
You're not working as a team.
Yes, not a team. And so it comes like a tit for a tat, a quid pro quo, if you're going to make things equal.
Well, you even see, talking about a team there, good teams, they know their roles. Now, they might not have equal playing time. They might not have equal amount of points, but you need the assists for the points.
Yeah, everybody's role plays in a part to get to the end goal, which is winning.
And sometimes it looks different game to game.
Yeah.
One player might be really on one game, so, hey, give that person the ball. Whereas another time. It might be another person's time. And so that's the same thing in marriage.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what's going on with jobs, with just life circumstances, kids. One of you might feel like you're on the bench, and one might feel like
Right.
you're in the game doing it, feeling like you're doing it all. So
Right, and that kind of leads you into the idea of there's seasons in our marriage or in a marriage that you play different roles with different skill sets, with different, equalities that come into play. So the idea of this shifting, so overall, it's going to end up equal regardless. But it's the understanding that, you know what, this is my season to do this. Like when we were going to seminary, it was my season to cook all the meal or most of the meals and bathe the kids and get them ready for bed. And I did that willfully because it wasn't about me, it was about we.
Or a time when you were working and coaching, you were teaching and coaching, and I was home with the kids, and I was like, you know what, let me take over the finances, because you used to always do the finances. Let me lighten your load. What can I do so you're not so stressed, so we can kind of even the work together.
Right, and that's what it is. It's about working together, and a marriage is a covenant. And in a covenant relationship, covenants aren't equal. It was about coming together, two parties, and those two parties are going to bless and help each other, regardless of what one has and the other one doesn't, or what they have and the other one doesn't. It's about a blessing, a helping. It's about saying we want to partner together in everything in that covenant relationship. And that's what a marriage is supposed to be. It's built on the covenant that God gives us. And we're choosing to be with each other in that covenant. So it's not about, again, it's not like a brother-sister. It's not like a job. I mean, we can say that about a job too. You know, we want things equal. If we're in the same position as somebody else in the company, we want things equal. But that's not a marriage. And it's really hard to flip that switch and turn that mindset a little bit differently when we get inside the home.
But you see, even God did it in defining the marriage. You know, in Ephesians 5, it talks about the roles of a husband and wife. And you'll see the first, when it starts talking about it, Ephesians 5, 22 through 33. Well, 22 through, 22, 23, 24, just talk about the wife. You know, to honor and respect and submit to her husband. And then the rest of it, the rest of the verses.
For about 10 verses.
Talk about the husband and his role. So even from the get-go, you know, God's saying equal doesn't look the same here. Yes, you both have roles to bring into a marriage, and I am making the husband's role, this is his role, and here's the wife's role. But when it comes together, it works. Everything that God planned, you know, it works if we do it God's way.
And you're going to get 100%. I saw this one Instagram post, probably a TikTok or something. It was talking about, I give my wife 100%, or I give my husband 100% throughout the week. And it was saying, well, Monday I'm going to give 13%. Next day I'm going to give 27%. And I'm going to add up by the end of the week, I've given my marriage or my spouse 100%. And that is looking at a measuring stick in a marriage. And God doesn't do that. And praise the Lord, God does not look at equality as the defining role in a relationship. Because if that was the case, we have already fallen way short of our relationship and covenant relationship with Jesus. He's done the heavy lifting in our relationship with God. And Jesus isn't sitting there saying, well, I've already done this, this, and this, so I'm going to sit back now and it's your turn. You know, again, he takes that husband role. He takes the sacrifice role. He takes the bigger role. And he says, because that's what I can do. That's my job. Now there's parts that you can do. And same thing in a marriage. There's a husband role, there's a wife role, there's a moment role.
And I think the question then to ask and the mindset we need to have is, how can you outbless the other person? You know, it should be about blessing each other and looking for ways to be a blessing to each other. And that comes from really knowing your spouse, knowing what they're going through, what they are needing help with, assistance with, supporting them in that, and just being a blessing. You know, instead of looking for, we can either look at for ways that annoy us or things that aren't going good, or you can look for ways to bless your spouse, just to be a blessing. And I tell you what, when you look at for the things to be a blessing, it becomes fun, right? And it almost takes you back to those dating days where you kind of have the rose-colored glasses and,
right.
and you just want to do something good for the other person and bless them.
Right, and I think it comes back to what you said at the beginning of this podcast. Be equal in effort and equal in love. Mm-hmm. And give that 100%, give that 110% every day to the marriage, to each other. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter how that is divvied up. And it doesn't, and that's the great part. Now, if there's parts in your marriage that you're saying, well, I really wish my spouse would blank, mm-hmm. Pick up the slack in certain areas, that's the time when you need to go back to the problem-solving skills and maybe sit down with your spouse and say, when you blank, I feel frustrated or I feel blank. Mm-hmm. And then fill in those blanks and have a dialogue of why you're starting to get frustrated with the imbalance where you see there could be more balance. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that.
If you're feeling like it's one-sided.
If it's one-sided, it's okay to go ahead and do that.
If your spouse is lazy, just sits around and doesn't do much when things need to be done, that's a time for that conversation. When mm-hmm. you sit and do nothing and I am having all the kids and you see what's, do you hear the kids crying or do you hear this? That makes me frustrated because, and that's the way to have that conversation.
Right. And so then, but it's still not about measuring sticks. It's about let's get this job done together. So not only can we enjoy the moment a little bit better, we can enjoy the next moment together in a greater way, in a more positive light. Mm-hmm. And that's what I always thought in our marriage is when we got together and doing something, it wasn't about me relaxing, because if you don't win and I don't, then I don't win. And so the same thing about relaxing or equality, it's not equal till it's over. And no matter what the situation is, we're not both going to rest until, we can both, one of us isn't going to rest unless both of us can rest. It's the kind of deal. And so it's just about that effort and love towards one another and looking out for the betterment of the we mm-hmm. in the situation. So right. This has been fun.
Yeah, I hope that answered questions. And by the way, if you have a question or a topic that you want us to talk about, you can DM us on Instagram or, we'll put that information down below. Or you can email us at hello@schaeferministries.com and we will get that. Also, we have our Marriage Builders course. So that is an awesome thing. If you know somebody who is thinking of getting married, that would be a great gift for them. Or it's good for any stage in your marriage. If you've been married for a couple years to empty nesting like us, it'll really benefit your marriage. So check that out. And also, we are now open for coaching one-on-one. So if you and your spouse are like, you know what, we could use some just one-on-one guidance and help through this navigation, we have that available as well. So you can click down below. We have a free discovery call. You can just get on a call with us and see what all that entails and see if that would be a good fit.
We're excited about just, again, helping marriages and helping couples help themselves, making you who God's created you to be and what your family's supposed to be.
All right. Well, till next time, bring hope home to your life today.
If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, give us a 5-star rating and drop a review. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. See you next week.